Hi, this is Shelley Van Pelt, and I am one of the newest members of the Scleroderma yoga team, yoga for scleroderma and arthritis, and here to talk to you about GERD. But I want to tell you just a little bit about myself and why this topic is so important and why I know so much about it. So, I am a registered nurse. I am a clinical nurse specialist. I have a master's in nursing science. And when I was actually in grad school, I got diagnosed with scleroderma back in 2009. GERD was already an issue I was dealing with, but with my medical background and my certification in holistic nutrition and working with patients, wearing both hats, I think that this is an absolute must. And so take a listen to my podcast and let me know what you think. So excited. But I wanted to talk to you today about scleroderma life hacks. And you're going, okay, what can she tell me that will help me make my life day-to-day quality a little bit better? So here's our topic today. We're going to talk about GERD, also known as gastroesophageal reflux disease. And I'm going to give you some hacks about what you can do if you need immediate relief, semi-mild relief, and or tips on changing a few lifestyle choices and see if we can't make your daily life with acid reflux just a little bit better. So let's start off first with a little bit of information. So about 40 to 50% of scleroderma patients, myself included, are affected by acid reflux or GERD. And from this point forward, I'll say GERD. And that is incredibly uncomfortable. I do not like heartburn. I don't like the acid going back up in my throat, making me cough, giving me asthmatic symptoms, making me sneeze. Plus, it just tastes horrible. But what I did find out is even though 40 to 50% of us get the symptoms, 91% of us with the already diagnosis of scleroderma will be affected by some type of esophageal changes. And that, of course, is the tube where all the food goes down and plops right there in your stomach. So now let's take a bigger picture and then we're going to narrow down. So in your mind, I want you to picture your body. We eat food through our mouth, we chew it up and we swallow. It goes down our food pipe, the esophagus, our lower esophageal sphincter, key point area here, so hold on to that, opens, the food drops into our stomach acid and the motion of ruminating kind of breaks it all up and everything goes down through the duodenum and then enters into the intestine for absorption of those nutrients, those minerals, even hydration. So now that we have that basic there, let's back up just a little bit and look at just the stomach itself. The hydrochloric acid in your stomach is 1 to 3 on the pH scale. What does that mean? That means that's a highly acidic area. That is acid that you won't even put on your hand. But what's the beauty of the stomach is it has a lining in it that helps keep the mucosa pushing away the hydrochloric acid, which is in the stomach, but anything outside of that mucus line is safe, which is wonderful. So a little bit about that. So what does acid reflux feel like? I know, sorry, silly question. We all suffer from it. But for those of us who are new to it, let me give you some areas where you might not realize that it's your acid reflux. And one of those is actually waking up in the morning with a hoarse voice, possibly. You're starting to notice that you're having a little difficulty swallowing, possibly, and still not feel the actual acid reflux yet. But these are things that are subtle and they come on. We also start having increased mucus drainage from the back of our sinuses down our throat. Our body's trying to give us extra mucus. So again, we don't damage that esophageal lining, which is all great, except for we might be able to minimize some of those symptoms if we do a few things to change things around, i.e. lifestyle changes. So you now realize that you have the symptoms. You go to your doctor and the doctor's thinking, okay, we've got to get on top of this. Let us prescribe you a medication that will reduce the acid production in your stomach. And that could be something called a PPI, or proton inhibitor, proton pump inhibitor, excuse me. And that is the cell that will make the actual acid in your stomach. Well, we have now decreased that, which is okay because we want those symptoms to be relieved. The other part is with an H2 blocker, that blocks the hydrogen, excuse me, in the process of making the stomach acid. So that is another way of doing that. And both of those, when you have this problem, are very, very, very important because we need to relieve the symptoms and the actual action of the acid going back up the esophagus, meaning that the esophageal, the lower sphincter, cannot hold back the acid because it is not typical for acid to keep going up your throat. Not to mention the damage it's going to cause, which then down the road, if we leave this problem going and going to where it's a long-term problem, it can cause some serious, serious adverse effects. So with GERD, which is acid reflux, let's talk about some of the stages. Now, we talked about kind of the general symptoms, but in stage 1, which is known as minimal acid reflux, you are going to experience just, again, an occasional heartburn, maybe once or twice a month, which is normal because we have an American diet here. We like our cheeseburger and fries. Or you will start noticing an increase in the heartburn with a cough. And what is the cough? That is your body trying to clear the acid out of your throat. And so that's where you start going, okay, this is not being relieved by a few tips or over-the-counter drugs. So the best thing to do would be to go see your doctor sooner than later. In stage 2, we have moderate GERD. And again, this is occurring enough to where the doctor's going, okay, let's prescribe you one of these acid reflux medications. Let's see how you do, and we will reevaluate. And you're thinking, well, that's great. And for a couple of weeks, it might work. You might take it just in the morning, about a half hour before the meal, or you might get it twice a day. And again, best time to take it is about a half hour before your meal. Then you start noticing maybe some more subtle side effects. The medication isn't quite working. What do you do? And you're thinking, I don't know. What do I do? Do I double my meds? No, don't ever assume that you can double any medication. That is not good. But what you can do is start looking at things in your daily life that you can do that are not expensive and actually are very effective. So with stage 3, severe GERD, and this is where it becomes fully painful. And you may not even be able to get improvement with the help of a doctor. And you might need to be looking at something that's a little bit more permanent. And that might be even surgery. And we'll explain that a little bit later. Stage 4, remember when I said if you just keep letting it go on and on, you deal with the misery, you deal with not being able to go anywhere, you deal with the fact that you can't have certain dietary foods. Well, this is where it's getting really serious because end of stage 3, moving into stage 4, the damage is already being done. And what will you notice? You'll be noticing difficulty swallowing. You might even find that all this mucus draining from the back of your throat is just not giving up because, again, its intention is to line and add more mucus to your esophagus. The other part, too, is you might become short of breath. Now, that was the one that really kicked me in the behind. I have asthma. I also have GERD. GERD can cause asthmatic symptoms. Now, think about that. GERD can cause asthmatic symptoms. And you're thinking, how does it do that? Well, we have a problem when we have GERD. And for those of us who lay flat after a meal, bedtime, well, that acid comes up the back of your throat, past the laryngeal cords, and it will literally hit the back of your mouth. Well, you would think it would go down the same way. Not all the time. Sometimes that acid will go down your windpipe, also known as your trachea. And that is a direct shot to the lungs. So you're literally aspirating stomach acid. That causes the cough to go, and it can wake you up in the middle of the night like you would not believe. You will come bolting sitting straight up to keep that cough under control. So what do you do? Well, we'll get to that, but I wanted to continue with more symptoms. Also, one of the things that you might notice after you eat certain things is you can't bend over because that pressure in your stomach is pushing up against that lower esophageal sphincter, and that brings acid right up into your throat. Again, not a good idea. So what happens when this acid keeps coming up and you're not able to deal with it effectively? You might wake up. You might wake up with a horsey or froggy voice. You might have that sexy smoker voice that all those actresses from the 1940s had. Yeah, it might sound romantic, but it's not, trust me. Because with that also comes halitosis, also known as bad breath. Dental teeth become eroded. And so, like my teeth, I had it so bad that some of my teeth, the enamel is literally eroded off the surface of my teeth. And that's not a good thing, but I now know that, and I do things to prevent any further damage. And then the other part is just the irritation of the lining of the esophagus, the lining of the back of your throat. It is painful. It is not fun to deal with. So we will give you tips on how to relieve all of that. In stage 4, I want you to remember that as the acid kept backing up into your throat, it started causing cellular changes. And over time, that's called Barrett's disease. And if you can't get that under control, that just might lead to throat cancer, esophageal cancer. So in the beginning, remember, I kind of warned you that we need to be very on top of this situation. Well, that is what will happen. And so to prevent all of that and all of the discomforts and the way it makes you feel, let's talk about some GERD life hacks. Does that sound like a good idea? Excellent. Okay. All right, let's talk about foods that cause GERD. And this is a tough one because a lot of these foods are like some of my favorite. Let's start out with chocolate. Love chocolate, but the caffeine relaxes that lower esophageal sphincter and it increases acid up your throat. It also has a chemical called theobromine, which also relaxes your lower esophageal sphincter and increases reflux. Well, I still eat chocolate, but I'm very careful when I eat it, and I also only eat just a little bit. It's one of those things, I'm sorry, I just cannot give up. Our next on the list are fatty foods. French fries, onion rings. Oh my gosh. That is probably one of the worst that you can do because of it increases acid reflux and it also relaxes that lower esophageal sphincter. So when I say fatty foods, what are you thinking? Kentucky Fried Chicken? Yes. French fries from Burger King? Yes. Processed foods? Yes, because a lot of our processed foods have fat in them and they're just not good for you. So I'm looking at French fries. Have you ever gone to like the IHOP and ordered pancakes and sausage? Double whammies right there. Let me tell you, with the butter, the syrup, the flour, the fats, the sausage, I can't even walk out of there. I am in pain when I'm done, but I guess that happens. The other things you might want to avoid are dairy. Now, do remember that these few food sensitivities are individual to each person. So as a tip, a life hack, find out what those are for you. Now, some people can't do coffee, but they can do coffee before noon, meaning that they're going to be upright the rest of the day. You can try decaf coffee. Not too bad. But again, find out which works best for you, or just eliminate the coffee option altogether. Chamomile tea, perfect. Oh my gosh, so soothing to the throat, soothing to the tummy. And if you don't drink it too soon before bed, you get some really good relief. And so chamomile, one of my favorites. Other fatty foods I do want to just reiterate are the dressing on your salad, your ice cream, the sour cream that goes on your potato or your taco or wherever you use it. Hard cheeses, those fancy cheeses flare me up so bad. But I do find out that mozzarella cheese works pretty good for me. Cheddar, 50-50, who knows, but mozzarella works really good for me. Peppermint. Peppermint tea is wonderful. It tastes good, it's soothing, but again, can you drink it? It does have a problem with relaxing that lower esophageal sphincter, i.e., up comes the acid reflux again. So peppermint, I can do peppermint every once in a while, but if I do try and put in some type of nut milk that I can like almond milk, just to kind of buffer it a little bit for me. Spices, who likes spicy food? I do. Irritates my throat so bad. So I have cut out quite a bit. And the ones that the ones that cause the acid reflux for me are things with chili. So being Mexican, I had to modify my Mexican diet and do not eat near the chili that I used to. Breads, flour tortillas over corn tortillas. For me, corn tortillas work best for my digestion. Flour tortillas, don't even want to go there. And then sugar. And I know you think, wow, sugar, you're talking about foods. Sugar is probably one of the worst. Sugar is a pro-inflammatory, and when you mix it with a fat, a flour, some other ingredients, and let's say you have this fabulous apple fritter that was deep fried in fat, does not go well at all. So when you look at foods to buy that are of multiple ingredients, read the ingredients label because what's in there might be that little one ingredient that's going to kick back and cause you acid reflux. So there's another tip. Know what triggers your acid reflux. Because really, when we have food, we want to enjoy it. We want to taste it. We want to get full and satiated. But sometimes halfway through a meal, my stomach's just going, this is not going to work. And so I have to really consider when I go to a restaurant on what I need to order. But it doesn't kick me out from going to a restaurant because just like our yoga therapy, we make it work for what's best for our body. Key thing, be your own advocate. If they don't have anything on the menu that might not work or will work, go for the stuff that will work. And then, if you have to socialize, and then go grab yourself something at home that's a little bit more suited to make sure you have a satiated tummy. With the spices also, ethnic foods are super hard for me. I don't do well with a lot of ethnic foods, even though I love them. So get to know which ones you like the best and learn how to order off that menu. Citrus fruits are so yummy this time of year. They're so delicious. I don't think I've had an orange in over 5 years because I love oranges. They do not like me. And that goes also along with any other type of citrusy fruit. They just don't go well. They change the pH in my stomach, and I'm pretty miserable after eating, like, say, a simple orange, and I do miss them. Tomatoes, another citrusy type fruit slash vegetable, however you want to categorize it. I don't do well with tomatoes. I can do limited fresh tomato, chopped up like in a nice omelet, but that has to be before noon because tomatoes and I do not agree. Tomatoes is a nightshade, and in that classification of nightshades, along with potatoes, I just know that those are two foods I just really have to be careful about. And even tomato sauces from a can, dehydrated tomatoes are the worst because you're concentrating down into a dehydrated slice of fruit. And for some reason, for me, yeah, I don't even go there. Also, sorry, Potato chips. Oh boy. Potato chips, one, the potato is a nightshade. Two, they're usually deep fried. They're heavily salted, and we just can't stop eating them. Once that bag is open, boom, potato chips are gone. But what happens is the acid reflux. And I just can't do potatoes either. But I can do them if I'm eating them with something that's kind of a buffer, such as a green salad. I can have a few potato chips, just a few. But the salad is kind of an alkaline based meal, which is really good for the stomach, especially if it has celery chunks in there. And it is delicious. And I get to have a little bit of potato chips, but I also get to have this healthy, nice green salad. Alcohol is a absolute no-no. Wine, hard liquor, beer. Now they've got other drinks. I don't know what the heck they are, but alcohol relaxes that lower esophageal sphincter and it will cause you to reflux all the way up to the back of your throat. So if you do want to have alcohol, try and have it with one of the foods that will buffer your acid reflux. So might sound a little funny, but it's very effective. Wine and celery sticks, actually a pretty good combination. Might not sound appetizing, but it is a great combination. So one thing I recommend, buy the celery at the grocery store, cut off the bottom, drop it into a jar of water, and it will last about a week. But you'll have your instant remedy on hand right there out of your refrigerator. And it's really inexpensive. The other thing I do want to talk about is carbonated beverages. Your Diet Coke, your Diet Pepsi, your Sprite, your 7 Up, even carbonated water tends to cause increased pressure in the stomach. So you're starting to feel a little bloated, might even have to burp once or twice. But what it does is it causes back pressure on the lower esophageal sphincter, and up comes the acid reflux. And carbonated beverages tend to induce a harsher reflux. When I say harsher, that means it burns and is a little bit more painful than other reasons why you get heartburn. So do remember that carbonated water is a big thing right now. Sodas have been around forever, but they're not good if you have acid reflux. And then you've probably seen those commercials where these sodas can also cause more damage to your teeth. And we don't want that either. We want to preserve our beautiful mouth, our beautiful teeth. It chews our food, it helps us swallow, gives us that inspiration to just have a great meal. But just remember, carbonation can cause acid reflux and it will be more painful. Now, here are some food tips that actually might help you. I am a big proponent of ginger. Ginger calms the stomach. It'll quell symptoms of nausea and acid reflux if you use it in a moderation. And it's also a powerful anti-inflammatory. I unfortunately cannot do ginger. I have an adverse reaction. My acid reflux gets miserably worse. And I just feel like I'm inflamed from the back of my throat all the way down into my stomach. So for me, ginger is out. But for a lot of you, ginger just might be the perfect remedy that you need. Eating leafy greens, also remember going back to that salad, no tomato, no onions, because onions can also cause acid reflux. Keep it naturally low in fat. Watch the salad dressing that you use and keep it low in sugar. But salads are going to be one of your best food meals that you can eat and enjoy. Add some of your favorite items that would go there. And it's just a really great anti-inflammatory, anti-reflux kind of meal. When we look at decaffeinated teas, herbal teas, that was the key word, decaffeinated herbal teas, such as chamomile. Chamomile is fabulous. It soothes the throat, settles the stomach, and can alleviate stress and promote relaxation. So one of the things that can cause acid reflux, or acid reflux can bring on, that's anxiety and stress. So here you have an option of a cup of tea that can handle both the stress and the reflux. And it just puts you in such a great mellow mood. It's kind of like meditating with tea, isn't it? Celery, okay, I cannot say this enough. Get celery, put it in your refrigerator. You can even carry it with you in a Ziploc bag if you have to, but it will almost immediately give you decreased symptoms. For me, it actually cuts my acid reflux pain and symptoms. It just cuts it way down. But think about it. It's celery. Here are a couple of tips though that I want you to remember. One, make sure it's fresh. Two, make sure it's really well washed. And then three, when you cut off the bottom, and you can cut off the leaves too if you want, and you put it in your glass of fresh water, change that water out every day. And it will last about a week, depending on how much celery you do cut up. But do remember that in the middle of the night and you have an acid reflux attack, head to the kitchen and get that celery juice going. I spit out the fiber part because I'm already bloated by the time the acid reflux kicks in, but just keep chewing and swallowing, and you can just spit out the fiber, but you will be one, shocked about how fast it does work, but two, how well it works. Now, this is a temporary solution, but a very effective, immediate resolution to some bad reflux. Aloe vera. I like this one too because you can grow and keep an aloe vera plant in your house. And if you are suffering from acid reflux, similar to the celery, chew it up, go ahead and swallow the gelatinous part of it, or you can just peel back the skin of a leaf and scoop that gelatinous part out, put that in your mouth and suck on it, and then slowly let it go down the back of your throat. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I actually killed my aloe plant because I was using it too much. Then I went back to celery. So those right there are 5 really great ways that are pretty much from the grocery store on how to relieve your acid reflux. I want to just briefly again go over something about the medications that we are given. Now, I am on a PPI, proton pump inhibitor, and that will help keep my acid reflux under control. Other people do what they call an H2 blocker. Same effect, keeps the acid under control. But here are some of the side effects I want to go over because these will affect you down the road. So, and I never encourage anybody to stop their medication because of, remember we talked about Barrett's and then Barrett's leading to esophageal cancer. But what you might be able to do is reduce your dosage. Some people are on these pills once a day. I've seen it twice a day, morning and night. And then I've seen it every single meal. And again, when you take them, you always take them a half hour before each meal. But here's a few things I want you to remember that are key, that I hope will get you to think about the hacks that I talked about. One, when you take a PPI or an H2 blocker, it decreases, now listen to this, it decreases the absorption of nutrients. And that's what our body runs on. It does that by decreasing the stomach acid. So things like your vitamin B12, your magnesium, your calcium, absorption is almost ineffective. That's why you'll see a lot of us on a vitamin B12 supplement, or you'll see us on a multivitamin, is because we need that additional nutrition because our food isn't allowing us to be absorbed. Excuse me, the acid reflux is not allowing us to absorb the nutrients that we need. The medication can also change your gut bacteria. So gut bacteria is also very important with digestion. And when we think about gut bacteria, we know that we have good bacteria and we know that we have bad bacteria. But when you're on a medication that reduces acid, you're increasing the risk of the bad bacteria proliferating. Here comes your bloating. Here comes your nausea. Here comes your swollen stomach. Here comes just feeling like crud. So to have a balanced gut biome with the proper bacteria, we will do much better absorbing nutrients as we eat the foods that help sustain us. So what do you think about what do I do? Well, what I would recommend is if you can hook up with a nutritionist who has experience in acid reflux. They can guide you with the proper foods, food sensitivities, and eating habits that will reduce acid reflux to promote the maximum nutritional absorption as we can get. And we need a lot. Our bodies are in constant autoimmune focus, and we need our nutrients. Let's talk about two things that can happen if you find that you think you might have a gut that's off balance. First one is, remember I was talking about bad bacteria. There's something called C. diff, and that becomes a major problem. And you're going, why is that? Because it will cause diarrhea, like the kind of diarrhea where you can't make it to the toilet, or you might make a mess, or you might get it so aggressively that that's all you're doing is having diarrhea. And that is not good because that will throw everything off. Your electrolytes are going to be thrown off. You're going to become dehydrated. You don't feel good, and you get incredibly fatigued very easily. So that's one of the reasons why we need to balance our gut bacteria. The other one is you can balance between, I shouldn't say balance, you can go between the diarrhea or constipation. And both of them are not fun. What we've learned in yoga, though, is we have yoga moves that can help with our digestion. But again, we always look for the root cause. And if it's the medication, the not good food, the not doing a few of the other things, you can really mess up your gut and digestive system. So here's another life hack. Don't stop them. Don't stop them right now. Say, I'll never do it again, because what happens is you get rebound acid reflux. And this happens suddenly, usually within a day or two of coming off the medication. And when I say suddenly, I tried this and I literally threw up in my car. It was like, wow. So the acid reflux comes back, and it comes back in a strikingly worse way. The symptoms are worse. So what do? I talk to myself, I go to my refrigerator, I pull out my celery, and as I'm sitting there munching, trying to get this acid reflux under control, I review what I did to put myself in that situation. Ate the wrong foods over the weekend, didn't get enough sleep, didn't sleep with my head of bed up, ended up going to bed an hour after I ate. Big no-no. Don't ever do that. Eat 3 or 4 hours before you go to bed on food. For drink, 2 minimum, because of our slow digestion known as gastroparesis. We at times sit with food in our stomach for hours on end. Some of us, we don't have to eat much and we're full till bedtime. And that was probably around lunch that we ate. Other people, they can handle the slightly larger meals, but sometimes depending on what they eat, might not get that moving along fast enough. So if you want to prevent rebound acid reflux, stay on your medications, work with your doctor, change some items in your diet, and then maybe you can reduce the dosage, or maybe you can come off, but that will be between you and your medical doctor. And with that, I'm going to give you some tips on clothing. Don't wear something binding around your stomach, especially if you're going to go out and eat or anytime you eat. And if you can, there's something called rest. What is that? Rest and digest. Yes, hugely important. So if you're going to eat, plan for at least an hour or two after that meal of minimal activity, because active activity, while we're trying to digest, do not go hand in hand. We get nauseated, we get incredibly uncomfortable. acid reflux might kick in. Next thing you know, it's going up our throat. We're coughing. Then we come short of breath. For me, I get my asthma symptoms. So can you see this rolling, ongoing situation? So come back to the root cause and realize that some of the things we choose to do cause the acid reflux, which means we can choose to do things that will reduce the acid reflux. So that's really the difference right there, is what you choose to do. So when you look at your foods, look at your sensitivities, look at your symptoms. Physically, you're going to have that cough. You're going to have the burning in your throat. You're going to wake up with a froggy voice. What you can do is raise the head of your bed up 20 degrees or sleep in a recliner. You can also wear non-binding clothes around the waist, belts, tight skirts, you name it. Try and keep that area kind of free-flowing. And then also watch your activity right after your meal. So if you're going to go to bed, I would like to think that you haven't eaten in 3 to 4 hours. If you're going to lay down, but always keep your head, neck, stomach above your hips. Okay, so does that make sense? You want everything to be in a downward motion by raising your head of bed. So keep that in mind also, because again, do you remember when I mentioned waking up in the middle of the night with that cough that just won't stop? You can't grab your breath. You've got that horrible taste in your mouth. You've got a froggy voice and you just keep coughing. Again, go to your refrigerator and grab some celery. That'll help calm it down. And if anything, small meals are best. We're used to in America having the 12-pack stand cakes with the eggs and the bacon and the toast and all that. No, we have to eat small meals. Our stomach during a gastroparesis episode just doesn't work as well. Our acid in our stomach normally ranges between 1 and 3, but when we reduce the acid, we increase the pH, so it's like 3 to 4 to 5. And when it's above 3, your duodenum, which is at the bottom of your stomach, will not open. Or if it does, it's really slow. So everything you've eaten prior to that is still sitting in your stomach. And it can get so bad that your stomach will finally say, I can't handle the pressure. You go to bend over, and as you come back up, so does the food, and you're throwing it up. That's just to relieve the pressure in the stomach. And that was an automatic reaction to your body going, the stomach pressure's too high. We have got to get rid of some of this, because the guy down at the bottom of the stomach, the duodenum, he's going, I'm not opening until we get a lower pH. Okay, makes sense. So think about some of the outcomes before you choose. Choose the right stuff, lower acid reflux. Choose some of the bad stuff, which we do occasionally treat ourselves, you're going to get hit with it. But I hope I gave you enough hacks, life tips, to deal with the situation in the moment or deal with it farther down the road. Because this is a diagnosis that we're going to have. We're going to get used to it. We're going to love it. We're going to respect it. But in order to do that, we need to make some decisions so that we don't keep causing it to come back up. So if you have any questions, feel free to get a hold of me. I've got some great recipes that might work for you. Or if you just want to talk about it, because it really does cut the quality